Hey, you guys, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to Naughty Love Movement. It's your girl, Nikki, and today I'm bringing opportunities for advertisement on my channel. If anyone is interested, they can email us at naughtylove2020@gmail.com. Our prices are affordable and reasonable, and please reach out to us. We can start our videos with any commercials that you would like us to advertise. I look forward to hearing from you. I'm out. One. Hey, you guys, welcome back to my channel. Yes, welcome back to Naughty Love Movement. It's your host, Nikki, bring you the latest and trending topics, and I vlog my life. So today, Naughty Crew, I want to get into a real serious topic, and also the reason why I want to talk about it because it speaks to what's going on today. Does the government have the right to make decisions on what we do with our bodies as women? And it can affect men too, right? Okay. But the way our government system is set up is so it's patriarchal, right? It's a patriarchal system, and I just really don't think they have a clue as to what they're saying when they're making decisions and overturning, you know, Roe versus Wade and things like that. Should they have the right? Like, I pose that question to United Crew. I have a little bit of history behind the government trying to control, especially us as African and women, American women, them trying to control what we do to our bodies. Okay. So please make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button as you're loading in to the room. Share my content. Please share. Let's keep the conversation going. And also leave comments and support the channel. Cash App, Super Chat, Super Stickers, they're all greatly appreciated, right? All these things help the channel to grow. So I leave you with the question before I drop this intro. Does the government have the right to tell us what to do with our bodies as women? And it can turn over to the men too, eventually. Okay. You see what they did to our men in slavery days. All right. They used to use them as breeders, took their choice away. It's the same thing. How could you take my choice on who I am able to build a family with or create my lineage with? All right. So, yes, make sure you hitting that thumbs up. I'm going to drop this intro and I'll be right back. Hey BJ, hey Juby Buggin. Thank y'all for joining me. And I think this is a conversation that should be had. And if you guys feel like you want me to drop the link so that you can give your thoughts, please just leave it in the chat. All right. And the reason why I'm driving this conversation because Whoopi Goldberg just recently went off on a view, okay, because they overturned laws in Texas, I believe, and she's been speaking very strongly about this ever since they overturned Roe versus Wade. Like, what gives them a right to tell me what I should do with my uterus. And it's just another way of enslavement, if you will. All right. And I just wanted to get my naughty crew thoughts. Seriously. So let's go to Whoopi first and foremost. And I may get a strike for this, but I think it's important that we get into it. Seriously. Let's hear what Whoopi has to say. She has very strong views. Here we go.
I don't understand why people who don't know how my body functions and what it does and what it needs, I don't know why they're in charge when I'm paying taxes. Get out of my uterus. Get out of my uterus. I'm sorry, you know, let me just be clear. I appreciate people who don't ever have to make this decision. I appreciate you and I applaud you. But when there are people at risk and there are a group of folks making decisions about my body, I don't get it. And I this is not advocating or saying no to it. I'm saying leave my body to me and my doctor. Yeah. I mean, am I crazy? It is something that people have a hard time deciding. It is not easy to just go do it. People don't make these kinds of decisions lightly. These take deep-hearted thought. And this idea that women were going around going, oh yeah, let me have an abortion. That's not how this works. And until you understand how my body works and what can happen to it, get out of here. Yeah. Get out of this body because you're trying to kill me. And I don't like it. Yep. I don't understand why people who...
Okay, so Whoopi Goldberg reacts to Texas Supreme Court overturning ruling allowing women to delete pregnancies. All right, I have to use certain language when it comes to YouTube. And quite frankly, I agree with her. I don't think it should be their choice to tell me what to do with my body. I don't think it should be their choice to tell my daughters what to do with their body. There's certain circumstances, and Whoopi is right. If a woman decides to proceed with the deleting act, it is not an easy choice. Although you got your Krishan Rocks out here who use it as a form of birth control, but the average person does not make this decision lightly. And I just feel like the government is overstepping their boundaries once again, because I found a TikTok video that I want to share with my naughty crew on how the government used to control Black women with birth control. Hey, Shay B. So let me share this with you, okay? And I just wanted to drive conversation around it. Here we go.
These were the Relf sisters, and every Black American deserves to know their story. In the summer of 1973, during the War on Poverty, sisters Minnie Lee and Mary Alice, 114 and 112, were sterilized against their wishes. The girls were sterilized and stripped of their decision to become a mother one day due to them coming from an uneducated, impoverished, and unskilled Black family. Let's get into what happened. Minnie Lee and Mary Alice were the youngest of 6 children to parents who supported them on welfare assistance totaling $156 a month. Nurses from the Montgomery Community Action Agency requested Mrs. Relf's permission to give her youngest daughters a long-acting contraceptive, Depo-Provera. Both parents were illiterate and didn't understand the form, which read surgical consent. Thus, Mrs. Relf would proceed to sign it with a huge X. Later, Mrs. Relf would learn that her daughters were permanently sterilized by use of federal funds, even though her only intention was to get her daughters temporary birth control. So that same year, the Relfs joined a class action lawsuit in federal court in hopes of a ban on using federal funds for sterilization. The Supreme Court went on to prohibit the use of federal dollars for involuntary sterilizations and the practice of threatening women on welfare with the loss of their benefits if they refused to comply. More than 100,000 mostly Black women were sterilized throughout the 20th century.
Okay, this is an example of when the government tried to make decisions on someone else's body, and they took for granted the fact that their parents were illiterate. They didn't know what they were signing, and ultimately they had to pay the biggest cost. Their kids, their two daughters, ended up being sterilized. Now, Shay B, I saw your comment. You said, I think the government assistance should be cut off if a female continues to have babies without being married after a certain period. Um, in some sense, I agree with you as far as like the government assistance. Like, you don't just keep having babies and you're not getting a job to support all these babies, right? But what I think should be implemented is um they should be made to use birth control. Hey, learning to love myself. Hey, um, I just, you know what? I agree. If you just keep having babies, you're not trying to better your life, get education so that you can get a better job to support your children. I think there should be a cutoff. They need to know it would be a cutoff so they don't continue the same behavior and thinking that they're going to be able to live off the system every time they produce a child. All right. Like, in that aspect, I definitely agree with you. It shouldn't, because I know families that have generational welfare that they pass down to each other, and they have kids and they keep having kids. So I get Shay B's point of view when it comes to that. But I still like it's a thin line. Like, what do you do? What things do you put in place so to prevent the future pregnancies? Like, should it be a birth control program implemented? You know what I mean? Where like they should be required, but then that goes into the woman's choice again, right? If they don't want to take birth control, they don't have to, or whatever. Yes, learning my love myself. She agrees with Shay B. She said welfare should be a helping hand, not a career. I believe in that. Yeah, where are the fathers? They should be held responsible as well. I know in New Jersey, the welfare system, how it works is they require the mothers to name the father. And then once they're on welfare, they automatically open up a child support case when it comes to the fathers. All right. So they're automatically put on child support. So I know in New Jersey, they do hold the fathers accountable as well. All right. And that's why a lot of men be mad because once they get on welfare, but like if you would take care of your kid, like she wouldn't have to be on welfare. Like it's just bottom line. Like, don't do the deed if you're not going to handle your responsibility. The uterus wants to be pregnant. And sir, if you do not want kids, you need to strap it up. Exactly, Shaby. No incentive to better themselves. I do know in New Jersey they are a lot stricter. Like now they only allow them to be on for a certain time period, and then they require them to start looking for work. I do know that for a fact. So in New Jersey, the laws have changed when it comes to the welfare system. Exactly. Well, I do know they're forcing the young ladies to get jobs now. It should definitely be a time limit. But I want to bring it back to our topic, you guys. Should the government have the right to make decisions on what we can do with our bodies? Because I'm going to tell you an example. I know someone that had gotten pregnant and the partner was running around on her. She didn't want to do the deletion, so she was just going to move forward with having the baby. Well, ultimately, let's just say she ended up with a rare disease, right? When she found out, right? And this disease and a medication, after she treated it, caused the baby's arms not to develop. So then she's forced to make a decision. And by then her kids are like her other children are like older. They're not little babies or anything like that. And she was faced with the decision, like, can I handle a handicapped child on top of everything? And I get, like, pro-life, all that. But when you're faced with a decision like that, and it comes down to, will I be able to provide this child with what they need? And it took her a minute, but she had to make a choice to delete the pregnancy, because she felt like mentally, she could not handle it. And guess what? That person ended up passing away young, right? And who would have been left to care for the disabled child? Well, that's what Whoopi was speaking on. Let me play it again for the people that just joined. That's what Whoopi was just speaking on, about the Texas laws about deletion. But the government has been trying this for years, you guys. This is not new.
I don't understand why people who don't know how my body functions and what it does and what it needs, I don't know why they're in charge when I'm paying taxes. Get out of my uterus. Get out of my uterus. I'm sorry, and let me just be clear. I appreciate people who don't ever have to make this decision. I appreciate you and I applaud you. But when there are people at risk and there are a group of folks making decisions about my body, I don't get it. And this is not advocating or saying no to it. I'm saying leave my body to me and my doctor. Yeah. I mean, am I crazy? It is something that people have a hard time deciding. It is not easy to just go.
Okay, and I agree with her. Leave that decision to me and my doctor. These are not medical professions making these decisions. This is just patriarchal men in the government trying to rule with an iron fist and suppress our rights, like they have been. Hence the reason why you have Diddy's and Russell Simmons in the world, where they feel like they could just force their will onto a woman with no consequence. This is the thinking of I'm not going to say, a lot of the men in America. A lot of the men in America. So I shared the story about the Ralph sisters, and when it came to birth control and how the government basically took advantage of the fact that, and of course they went to poor areas to promote this because they want us to stop what? Reproducing, right? So they introduced birth control. Let me play it again.
These were the Ralph sisters, and every Black American deserves to know their story. In the summer of 1973, during the War on Poverty, sisters Minnie Lee and Mary Alice, 114 and 112, were sterilized against their wishes. The girls were sterilized and stripped of their decision to become a mother one day due to them coming from an uneducated, impoverished, and unskilled Black family. Let's get into what happened. Minnie Lee and Mary Alice were the youngest of 6 children to parents who supported them on welfare assistance totaling $156 a month. Nurses from the Montgomery Community Action Agency requested Mrs. Ralph's permission to give her youngest daughters a long-acting contraceptive, Depo-Provera. Both parents were illiterate and didn't understand the form, which read surgical consent. Thus, Mrs. Ralph would proceed to sign it with a huge X. Later, Mrs. Ralph would learn that her daughters were permanently sterilized by use of federal funds, even though her only intention was to get her daughters temporary birth control. So that same year, the Ralphs joined a class action lawsuit in federal court in hopes of a ban on using federal funds for sterilization. The Supreme Court went on to prohibit the use of federal dollars for involuntary sterilizations and the practice of threatening women on welfare with the loss of their benefits if they refused to comply. More than 100,000 mostly Black women were sterilized throughout the 20th century.
It's like genocide, okay? It's like genocide. Look at how many people were sterilized as a result of it. And of course, they target the poor black community to unleash this. Now, the Depo-Provera shot is still relevant to this day, but it still has side effects. I mean, they have developed it, but it eats away at your bone marrow. And that's just from what I read, okay? I'm not no doctor or whatever, but that's just from what I read. Okay, guys, I'm in pharmaceuticals, so I read these things all the time. Let me see what some of these comments are saying. It's weird to me that the government has say over women, but not much say about what men do with their bodies. When you can only get pregnant one time every 9 months, but men can impregnate 9 women in 9 days, these men force an unavailable or unviable pregnancy, but once the child is born, don't want to provide the health care that is needed to sustain the child's life. So true, Juby bugging and learning to love myself. So true. So I challenge you. And I feel like that should be a choice discussed between me and my doctor. I don't feel like the government should have a say in what I do with my body and what I choose to do as far as healthcare when it comes to my body. And so I wanted to open up the conversation to you guys to see what your thoughts are. And it sounds like, Shay B kind of said she's always split on this. And I just feel like no judgment, to each his own. Everybody's situation is different. Like, for example, people get R word. Not everybody wants to bring a child in the world to remind them of their trauma. That's a very courageous thing to do if you do it. But I just think they're trying to reverse our rights and suppress us. And they try to use our reproductive system to do that. Hey, in my opinion, thank you for joining. They try to make decisions on our reproduction system so that they can keep us suppressed. And I just really feel like, when did we get away from the woman making her choice? What was the whole women's rights movement about? And then y'all just go in and reverse things that have been in place for years to protect us. So I introduce you guys to the Ralph sisters and the whole movement. And it looks like it was an attempt for the welfare system to kind of suppress the population, because there probably was a high reproduction rate because there was no birth control being used. And ultimately, they introduced a birth control that they have not done much testing on. And the girls ended up getting sterile. And guess what? The FDA, the government approved it. And I'm telling you, they knew about this before they hit the market, but they're constantly trying to use people as test dummies for their new drugs. No, I didn't hear about it. Learning love myself, but that would be a good story. Please send it to me on my DMs. I forgot to put up my banner. So, learning to love myself said, "Did you hear about the black lady that had a deletion, but not by choice? Her body just discarded at her home, and now they want to charge her. Ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous." Hopefully they won their case. Let's look at it. Let's look it up. Let me see. Okay, let's look it up. go. Pull it up. So shout out to the Voice of Civil Rights Movement. So the Ralph sisters sued for involuntary sterilization. It was a moment in civil rights history. On June 27th, 1973, a lawsuit was filed on behalf of 14-year-old Minnie Lee Ralph and her 12-year-old sister, Mary Alice. 12 years old, you need birth control? It's weird. The girls were sterilized without their knowledge or consent. Workers at a federally funded family planning agency deceived their illiterate mother into believing that she was consenting to birth control shots. The lawsuit brought attention to the issue and increased regulations. Yeah, and over 100,000 to 150,000 people were sterilized annually under federally funded programs. I don't want to play this because I'll get a copyright. Let me see. Let's see. This is under the Southern Poverty Law Center. Let's see. Here we go. I have another article. Hey, you guys. Brittany Watts. I'll look it up as well. So the Southern Poverty Law Center filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Ralph sisters and exposed the widespread sterilization abuse funded by the federal government and practiced for decades. The district court found an estimated of 100,000 to 150,000 poor people were sterilized annually under federally funded program. Countless others were forced to agree to be sterilized when doctors threatened to terminate their welfare benefits unless they consented to the procedure. So they used that as leverage. They chose to take, oh my God, they blackmailed them to take this treatment. And this is just an example of how the government will try to strong arm you, and they will use things like taking away your welfare, even though that's the only way you can feed your children. So the judge prohibited the use of federal dollars for involuntary sterilization and the practice of threatening women on welfare with the loss of their benefits if they refuse to comply. As the litigation made its way through the courts, the U.S. Department of Health, Education, and Welfare withdrew the challenge regulations under which the government funded the forced sterilization. The lawsuit exposure led to the requirement that doctors obtain informed consent before performing sterilization procedures. So the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia declared that certain department regulations covering sterilization were arbitrary and unreasonable and enjoined the department from providing federal funds to be used for the sterilization of certain incompetent persons. The district court also ordered that the department to amend its regulations. When the department withdrew the challenges, it represented on appeal its intention to issue new regulations. The appellate court held that to the controversy was mute due to department's actions and remanded the case to the district court for dismissal. So I don't know that they received anything. That is crazy. Brittany Watts. Let's look up Brittany Watts. Okay. Shout out to Jezebel and shout out to Learning to Love Myself for this information. Thank you so much, Queen. This article comes from Jezebel. So, Ohio woman faces abuse of course charge for a deletion, not by her choice, in another post from Roe Nightmare. Sorry. So, and here she is, poor thing. Brittany Watts, a black woman in Ohio, is facing felony charges for abuse of a course after y'all see it, 20 weeks into her pregnancy in September, and her case is now heading to trial. Watts, 33, is specifically accused of y'all fill in the blank, her pregnancy while using the restroom, then flushing the fetal remains down her toilet. The remains were uncovered by local law enforcement on September 22nd, per the Warren Police Department. Watt faces this felony charge even as a forensic pathologist testified last month that her fetus was not born alive and was unalive before passing through the birth canal. Okay, that's an expert witness. Further, he said that the fetus was non-viable because Watts had premature rupture of membranes. Her water had broken early, and the fetus was too young to be delivered. Watts defense attorney Tracy Temko told local media last month that her client learned days before her that this outcome was inevitable and that the fetus could not survive outside of the womb due to gestational age. Okay? So Warren Assistant Prosecutor Lewis, I'm not even going to try to say it, has previously responded to Timko and the forensic pathologist by arguing that the issue isn't how the child was unalive when the child was unalive. It's the fact that the baby was put into a toilet large enough to clog up a toilet, left in the toilet, and she went on with her day. There is a lot to unpack here. Foremost, the fetal remains from a are not a child or baby. And this language is both inaccurate and dangerous. Nonetheless, Warren Municipal Court Judge Cherry decided to move the case forward, shrugging off the matters of the exact legal status of the fetus, corpse, body, birth, and tissues, whatever it is, as he so dismissively put it. So, in a statement shared with Jezebel this week, Timko accused law enforcement of demonizing her client for a common experience that many women share. She continued, Brittany suffered a tragic and dangerous that jeopardized her own life. Rather than focus on healing physically and emotionally, she was arrested and charged with a felony and is fighting for her freedom and her reputation. So she goes on to say, state law does not support criminalizing someone for a pregnancy loss. So this is Naughty Crew. How do you all feel about this? Like, I'm just like perplexed. I'm just like, did she know she had lost the baby? Did she realize it? Yeah, it's true. There's nothing you can do about it. But for the judge to dismiss, like, I think they gave credible arguments, her defense. So what was she supposed to do? Dig the baby out of the toilet? It wasn't a viable pregnancy, so it was just passing along. Okay, so thank you, Learning to Love Myself. So she knew, and she had gone to the hospital, and they sent her home. So what did she do wrong? She had been to the doctor prior to the miscarriage. Okay. Exactly, Juby bugging. Hi, Miss Know It All. Thank you for joining. Exactly. The government should not be trusted. Why did everyone go get vaccines? Oh, so she tried to get the baby out with a plunger, but at a certain point, she got to go take care of herself. No, that's crazy. Yeah. So I really wanted to drive conversation about this, Naughty Crew. Like, I don't feel like the government should have a say so in what I do with my body. That's between me and my doctor, seriously. But as you can see, just from the examples that I gave one from back in the day, and this is a current story with Miss Watts in Ohio. Yeah, they're railroading her. They're trying to make an example out of her. I believe they're trying to make an example out of her. Like, look, we told y'all Roe versus Wade was overturned. They trying to make an example. It's ridiculous. I'm just so tired of the government exploiting our people the way they do. Uh-huh. This is so true. Learning about myself. She said she had that unfortunate experience. And they send you home afterwards to monitor, your hemorrhaging. And if it continues, then they schedule you for a DNC. True. People did lose jobs due to that mandate. She said that damn Bill Gates. That damn Bill Gates. So I just wanted to present it to my Naughty Crew. I wanted to jump on here real quick to get your thoughts. I have been saving the story, and then I found that clip about the Ralph sisters. And look, it doesn't look like they were even compensated. The government straight up sterilized them and took their choice away for even building a family. It's just sad and ridiculous. And for those of you who are just joining, I'm gonna play it one more time. Whoopi Goldberg stance, which I agree with, and Whoopi Goldberg has been speaking loud and proud ever since they turned over Roe versus Wade.
I don't understand why people who don't know how my body functions and what it does and what it needs, I don't know why they're in charge when I'm paying taxes. Get out of my uterus. Get out of my uterus. I'm sorry, and let me.
And it's weird. And I think it's another enslavement tactic. I think it disrespects everything we fought for as women to gain our rights in this country. But it also speaks to the patriarchal society that is running the country. Okay. These men have an entitlement and they feel like they can just force their will onto women and force us into choices. Hence, the reason why you have P. Diddy's and Russell Simmons in the world. In my opinion and how I feel, they don't have the right to force you to make decision when it comes to your health and your body, especially when they're not even trained, licensed professionals. All right, Naughty Crew, that's all I have. Let's leave it in the comments. I just thought this was a very serious topic, and I wanted to do an independent video in regards to it. But this is important of knowing who we're voting into office, and it's just like it's getting worse and worse. All right. I don't even want to like. What are my options? Like when I go to The Good Old Boys Club. That's right, Miss Know It All. The Good Old Boys Club. Like, look at, we're coming up on election year next year. Thank you, Shay B. We're coming up on election year, and it's just like, I guess I'm gonna have to vote for the lesser of two evils, right, Naughty Crew? I appreciate every last one of you joining me. I hope you go on to have very, very blessed days. I will be back live later with some more trending topics. I'll probably be live about 8 o'clock. So I hope you all can join me, but I appreciate y'all rocking out with me anyway, regardless. I'm not like that over here. So just remember to hit that like button and share this content. We need to keep the conversation going, and we need to. I would like to have an open panel discussion about this when I have time, because I would like to see, like, what are options? How do we get this turned around? What can we do outside of voting to lobby for rights over our body? So I hope you all have a blessed, wonderful day. Until next time, Naughty Crew, I'm out. One.